rises to his feet. Okoro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland one of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo TV. Watch over 100 channels of live sports and TV for half the cost of cable. There's no contract and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers are coming off their first win of the preseason, a backup reserve-fueled win over Maccabi Ra'anana. I am joined today by my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. We're going to break down both that game as well as the Cavs preseason game against the Orlando Magic. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Let's talk about pace, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Just super geeked about the way the Cavaliers are playing. I think there's no better spot to lead this podcast than what JB Bickerstaff said pregame. Jackson Flickinger of Fear the Sword tweeted out that Cavs head coach JB Bickerstaff says pregame that in transition situations, he wants to get into their sets in 3 real seconds. He noted how efficiency spikes when teams get into sets early. And it's like, buddy, I think JB's listening to the pod.
I don't know if it's that. Maybe we should take a little bit of credit. We probably shouldn't. But
no,
yes,
we should.
The Cavs are playing with a higher pace. And, you know, I don't think you can take too much from preseason in general. We're obviously going to see how the team responds to the games counting. Do things tighten up when the game gets tight, right? Like if you are behind, are you going to revert to old habits and things like that? But what we were pretty consistent about when we discussed the Cavs offense last year was they would shoot themselves in the foot too frequently by taking far too long to initiate the offense, using up too much of the shot clock. And if that initial action doesn't work, all of a sudden you got 5 seconds left on the shot clock and you're reliant on an isolation production. And the other thing we talked about was their bread and butter, their fastball was really good. And that was, pick and roll offense and all the kind of plays that they had off of that. But they didn't have other pitches that they can go to. And I think through 3 preseason games now, we have seen the new personnel and the new changes they made to the offense diversify how they get into their offensive sets and how quickly they get into their offensive sets. So if you're looking for preseason indicators that they have worked on kind of our 2 biggest concerns and what we felt could really propel this offense to be more consistent and translate to the playoffs, I think you got check right there.
Yeah, all you can ask of a coaching staff is to take stock of how things went, take stock of where the league is going, and adjust accordingly. And the last few years, it was clear JB felt that this was a team that needed to play at a slower pace, needed to control the ball, needed to lean on its defensive identity, and that took them so far. And when they got to the postseason, it was clear that the offense didn't have enough juice. It was too much. It was too slow. It was too hard to generate good looks. So he took that data point and he is integrating changes to the offense that says, hey, we need to play a little bit faster. We need to get up more threes. And seeing that tweet from Jackson is so encouraging to me because I feel like in the old days when a defensive coach would commit to would use a lot of lip service in the offseason about playing faster, like that's kind of that's a very standard sort of talking point from a coaching staff in the offseason. And the way it typically manifests, and I even remember in some of those late 2000s Cavs teams, it would manifest in them playing out of control for the first 10 games of the season, just like rampant transition opportunities with no real identity, getting gassed, giving up buckets on the other end, and then bailing 10 games into the year because there wasn't really a belief system behind it. It was just be fast. And be fast is not a belief system. And that's why I'm so encouraged by that quote from JB, because a belief system is if we get into our sets with 3 seconds into the shot clock, then we have a real shot at generating cleaner looks more consistently, both in transition and in the half court. And that is a belief system. that is something that you can build on and has a legitimate foundation that you can kind of expect them to hold to.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think they're necessarily going to be like a run and gun, pace and space kind of team necessarily, where they're running for the sake of running. It's funny when you look at it, because last year Cavs averaged 96 possessions, and the league leaders were Golden State at just over 102. So that's a difference of 6 possessions over 48 minutes. And when you look at just how long it took them to get into those half-court sets, if you are eliminating that time, if you have guys that are more willing to take quick trigger threes when those are available, if Darius Garland is being more assertive and taking threes quicker, punishing defenses for going under, you're naturally going to generate more possessions as a result of that. And it's going to feel a whole lot quicker. And I don't feel like the Cavs have sacrificed in terms of defensive identity. I feel like the effort is still there. Now, there's been cracks every now and then. I think you saw that. And I think that's to be expected, especially with Jared Allen out. But overall, I still think that the defense has been sound for preseason. But just the purpose with which they are running their sets and how quickly they're getting into that, that's something that feels more sustainable than, like you said, running for the sake of running.
If you're a listener to this podcast, you've heard us mention a few times that the Cavs were 17th in transition frequency last year, and that their slow pace kind of belied the fact that they got out and ran a decent amount. I would be completely fine with this team being 17th in transition frequency again. That is, I do not feel like it's a team that passes up that many fast breaks. I feel like they're a team that walk into their half-court sets. So if that truly is the difference, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them fly up the pace rankings, even if they don't run in transition one iota more.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, and having guys like a Max Strus and a George Niang, like, we kind of theorize that that's naturally going to bump their pace, but the change in philosophy is going to have a big difference. And it's one of the things that I've liked about JB Bickerstaff. Like, I think if you're looking at one kind of consistent point with his coaching style, it's always, accountability, like, do what you're asked to do. Even guys that aren't necessarily strong defenders, if they are in position and they're taking the right type of shots and playing within his style and within the system, you're going to get minutes, and there's some tolerance for whatever deficiencies you may have. You deviate from that, you're going to end up losing minutes. But what I've liked about JB is he's not someone like a Phil Jackson, where I'm running my system no matter what the personnel is. There has always been adaptations based on what the personnel is that's available to him. And I think when you look at the 3-point frequency, we now have 3 preseason games where they've taken at least 43s a game. That's a big, big difference. Like, I do think kind of our theorizing or at least us being open to the possibility that, hey, maybe this is personnel more than philosophy based. I think that is starting to ring true, because with these changes to personnel, the style has changed accordingly. And I think it's a style that fits what they have pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, they've taken 132 threes through 3 games. I like it. That feels awesome. Obviously, Maccabi Ra'anana not stocked with like that the top end professionals. So like it's I wouldn't say this game is a data point insofar as like individual performance a ton, but like, again, the trends are holding. They are playing fast. They are playing more decisive. The ball is not sticking. They're not doing a lot of just probing standstill pick and rolls. Even like when they've run pick and roll, it's been a lot of guy flies off a pin down into a pick and roll. Everyone's got a running start on almost every set and on almost every catch. And whether that's a catch generated from the offense or a catch generated from all the extra space and guys having to close out a little bit harder. So it just feels...
Which, frankly, like that's what you want. Like, you don't want to completely abandon pick and roll, because it's still heavily involved in every good NBA offense. And if you're going to have 3-point volume, you're going to have some variance along with that. So you want to make sure that you are raising your offensive floor by, hey, we're going to mix in pick and roll. We're going to mix in these things that we have a very high points per possession on. Because if we count on still being, a top 5 defense, maybe they take a small step back, but still a very, very good defense. If you have that and you still mix in those bread and butter plays, you can weather the storm of offensive variance a little bit better. Like when you look at a team like Boston last year, they didn't have those bread and butter plays, right? Because they lack kind of the playmaking for those pick and roll and easy sets. It was a lot of just jump shooting and isolation basketball. You can make it so that you are a little more insulated from that 3-point variance by still going to that bread and butter. And like you said, I think, as Nakai says, the seasoning on those type of plays, right? Like you're just not walking up and running a pick and roll. You're taking advantage of a destabilized defense. And I think that is what we want to see when it comes to those kind of sets.
Yeah, man. It's just been really fun. I just kind of can't help but feel like if the defense doesn't take a major step back, and I think it's very possible that it does, something we did see when the Cavs did get out in transition, run a little bit more last year, was there would be times where the game would be a little faster than Mobley or Allen could keep up with, you know? And so it's very possible that if they overrun a little bit, you know, if they outkick their coverage on offense in transition, that they might give a little bit back. And, you know, I continue, you know, you look at that Orlando game, and Franz Wagner is built in a lab to make me more anxious about the Cavs' lack of point of attack defense and length on the perimeter.
He's a big man.
He's a big,
Orlando
strong, talented man. But, you know, like those concerns still kind of linger. But if that defense, much like it, like, again, I talked about this on the last podcast, that it's a defense that wasn't a disaster when Okoro was sitting. Like, they were still a great defense as long as they had Mobley and Allen out there. And if they don't take a step back and the offense takes a step forward, we might need to reevaluate kind of where we're slotting them, at least in the regular season, for the year. Like, because the offense was already really good despite the personnel limitations. It doesn't feel like there's a lot that's going to keep this offense from being elite right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's going to be a feeling out process when it comes to, all right, how are we going to blend the rotation? How are we going to find that right mix between pushing the pace and still prioritizing defense and still making sure that that is part of the Cavs identity? Because, I mean, that is very clearly still a strength. And I think that that's something that you can rely on them to go to. I don't think they're going to completely sacrifice the defensive end for offense, but you can make a little bit of a trade-off, because especially when it comes to the NBA, elite offense is going to still make shots on elite defense. We see it time and time again. And I think that this is just a style of basketball that is more suited to the postseason, assuming that you can strike that right balance. But I think the one thing that's really encouraging is, like, we were trying to figure out what the rotation's going to be, how deep you go in. And I feel right now like there are 10 guys that I feel really good about having in a rotation. We might not see them every single night, but with the way that they're playing, I think it's going to be hard to keep them off the court. And that starts with the guy that we finished the last podcast on, kind of pondering. I thought you were correct to point out, hey, he came in pretty late. What does this mean? We're going to have to keep an eye on that over the last 2 games. And boy, I think we've got some sample size here when it comes to Dean Wade, Carter.
We got to get a howl drop for the pod. That's on us, because Dean Wolf is cooking. George Niang has taken 14 threes in his, let's see here, 54 preseason minutes. How many threes do you think Dean Wade has taken in 15. His 58?
He is 9 of 15.
He has taken 15 threes. He's taken 5 threes a game.
You're not going to beat me on stats.
I know.
You know who you're doing this with.
Unlike you, I'm not here trying to compete. I'm just here to talk about great stats. So
life's a competition.
You just love to see the volume, the quick trigger with which Dean is shooting. It really is reminiscent of that beginning stretch of last season when we were like pretty sure he should be our starting small forward, based on the way he was playing. And it is getting to the point where you start to wonder, is this guy, does he have to play? And if he's going to shoot this well, he might have to play, because he brings something that's different from the rest of the roster. like indisputably. And then you kind of go to, well, and obviously right now without Jared Allen, it's not that hard to find him minutes. But like when the team's fully healthy, I kind of feel like if he's shooting like this, they're going to have to find minutes for him because there are archetypal players that they don't have a lot of answers for. Like, I don't really love, trying to guard Jason Tatum with 48 minutes of Max Strus and Isaac Okoro, and Okoro does a nice job on him, but like big length typically is like, there are great wings where just putting more size on them is kind of the antidote, or is the best play you can make. And like, I feel like he is really working towards earning a spot in this rotation if he hasn't already.
Yeah, I think it's going to be for that ninth man position in the rotation. It will be between him and Ty Jerome on kind of a nightly basis. Chris Fedor had done. Yeah, I know. That's such a great position to be in because Ty has looked awesome in preseason. He's a lot of fun, but we're going to stick to Dean for now. But Chris Fedor, I saw that he had a report the other day where basically saying that the top 8 in the rotation is set in stone, and it's what you would expect. The starters: Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, George Niang. But you're right. Like I think that there's going to need to be minutes for Dean Wade because he's looking healthy out there. As you mentioned, 9 of 15 from 3. That's great to see. Him rising up for that poster dunk was a lot of fun. But he's someone that's he's a legitimate 6'9", 6'10". He's a very good defender. He can defend 3 positions. And, we talk about the increased pace. Jared Allen dealing with a foot issue, like he's not able to do a lot of conditioning right now. So when he does come back, it may be something where you give him shorter spurts. You give him 4 minutes at a time because his conditioning isn't going to be at that level. And if you're doing that, I would almost rather play Dean Wade out there with Evan Mobley just to continue to have 4 spacers around him. Because historically speaking, Dean Wade has done a good job on the glass. He has helped those one center lineups to rebound well. And
even when his individual numbers haven't been great.
Correct. And the fact that he can contribute on both ends of the court gives you size and gives you spacing. I think that's someone that you're going to need to go to. And I would feel maybe a little more comfortable just with how dynamic he can be than going to someone like a Damian Jones, who obviously possesses size that Dean just doesn't. And
if he hits the upside, if he like, we're talking, pretty ambitiously about Dean right now for a guy who, had such a brutal back half of the year last year and who's had stretches where he has not played like this. This would be an outlaw. If he plays like this into the regular season, it would be the best he's ever played. So like, we are doing some projection here, but I think it's worth saying that if he plays at the level we're talking about, it also allows you that room. And I've talked about this a lot if you listen to this podcast, that in the postseason, there are certain series that role players, it's just not good for them. Mm-hmm. And a guy like Niang is going to have series where he's amazing, and he's going to have series where you go, oh man, they're killing him. They're really trying to space him out, and they're attacking him. And every time they're putting him and Darius or him and Donovan in pick and roll every set, and it's like a scab they're picking at. And to have Wade as an option, mm-hmm. where you could even, like, if Wade is that 9th man and Niang is the 7th or the 8th man, to have the option to flip their minutes, or, depending on who's got the hot hand, ride one of those 2, 3, 4 hybrids. That's optionality, again, the Cavaliers just did not have last year at that position.
Yeah, it allows you to play different styles, and I wouldn't be surprised if you do end up going with him at the small forward position, right? Like, because we've seen him do that at times, and it's funny, like, we talk about, finding that right balance, finding the right mix when it comes to pace, where you're not taking too much away from your defense and you're still juicing the offense appropriately. It's going to be that same balance when it comes to floor spacing as well, right? Because like you saw when Damian Jones was out there with Evan Mobley, you didn't have as much space. Now, I think Jared Allen creates more vertical spacing. I think his awareness to where to be on the court and what he can do offensively is obviously far advanced beyond Damian Jones. One of my biggest gripes.
Shouts to Damian, by the way, 7 of 7 from the free throw line tonight.
Just flat out too big. He was flat out too big the entire night. He was swatting guys like he was Wemby out there. It was a lot of fun. But one of my gripes as a former big man, Carter, is that people just say, oh, like one guy, he rolls to the rim, he does rim running, all centers, they do the same thing. It's as absurd as if you said, well, Ty Jerome shoots threes, so he gives you just what Darius gives you. No, it's different levels of attention that you command from a defense. And we're going to find that right balance. And when it comes to looking at last year, it's okay. It did work when Mobley and Allen were on the court. And honestly, it worked offensively with basically every combination in the regular season. Like if you look at the offensive rating per cleaning the glass with Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen, the only one that didn't have the best offensive rating in the NBA, if it was over the season, was with Lamar Stevens. With Dean, it was 132.9. With Okoro, it was 122. LeVert was 117.8, which is just a little bit under the Kings, but it was still better than the Celtics. Like, all of those lineups work. So I feel very confident that with Max Strus as, the best offensive player of that bunch, at least when it comes to fit, that lineup is going to work and the spacing is going to be better than last year. But we're going to need to find when we go into those second unit lineups. Okay, are we able to get away with George Niang for extended minutes at the 4? Do we need to go to someone like Dean Wade? Are we going to go even smaller and have Max Strus and Isaac Okoro out there together to maybe juice a little bit of the point attack defense with Okoro? Like, there are more options to go to and levers to pull, which when you reflect back on that Knicks series, one of the things we just consistently said was there were not levers for JB to pull. And I just don't think that that's the case with this team.
No, I don't think so either. I think that this team legitimately has depth. And I would really put their depth, when healthy, against just about any team in the league right now. Like, it feels like such a luxury to have made a cash-in move for Donovan Mitchell and have 10 guys we really like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it just affords you the ability to deal with it if you get a guy banged up for a while. If a guy goes through a cold stretch where he's just not playing that well, you can limit their minutes. You don't have to just grit your teeth and play. If Ty Jerome goes through a cold stretch, you don't have to grit your teeth and then play him 27 minutes a game. You can just say, "Hey, we'll play you a little bit, let you get your feet back under you. We'll see you when the jumper starts falling again." Like,
or we'll see in the fourth quarter when we're up 15, and let's let you shoot through some of the rust you're going through right now.
Yep. So like, I just feel like we're really getting a lot more optionality. We're getting, man, I just can't. My mind's kind of going off the rails about this season, which is funny because they lost their first 2 preseason games and fell behind double digits in both those preseason games. And I don't know if that's just me ignoring some warning signs. Though it was funny.
Sam Merrill and Tristan Thompson played second quarter minutes against the Magic.
I was to be clear, I'm not actually worried about that. But it was funny because I was just thinking about that preseason game 2 years ago. Maybe it was 3 years ago. I can't remember now. I think it was 2. The opener against Chicago, where they beat us by like 50. And everyone was like, it's never going to get good. It's never going to be better. And then they figured things out. So I'm trying not to like over-index too much and just try to focus on.
I'm pretty sure we got shelled by the Sixers twice last preseason as well.
Yep. So I'm just trying to look at like the trends. I'm trying to observe to see what the team's trying to do and whether that kind of aligns with what I think they should do. And right now, as it often has in the JB tenure, it seems like they're aligning.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think your point of, guys aren't always going to play well. There are going to be injuries that open up opportunities for other guys. Like, that's going to be something that we see throughout the season, right? And I think even when you look at the two-way guys, I feel good about their ability to step in if the injury bug strikes, or if the flu bug strikes, which seemed to hit us a million times last year. You got more options that you can go to there, and you can kind of deal with the inconsistencies in guys' plays, because people aren't consistent. It's just reality. They're not as consistent as the support that we get from Zoom. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. Carter, I want to talk, well, we're on the subject of how guys are getting used. I think we have enough of a sample here to start talking about what they're doing with Isaac Okoro. Because to me, this is one of the most interesting things when it comes to preseason. And frankly, the start of tonight really opened my eyes as well, because throughout preseason, Isaac Okoro is being used as a trigger man above the arc with multiple shooters out there. Even when, you have multiple ball handlers out there, he is being used in those opportunities because they are letting him get downhill, be a passer, throw those assists to guys coming off of screens, and just causing the defense to react to him a little bit differently and getting him those on-ball reps. And the fact that he was used as a trigger man the first two possessions of this game with Ty Jerome and Karis LeVert out there, I thought was interesting, because obviously you kind of script out how the first few possessions are going to go in a game. And the fact that JB Bickerstaff is using him those ways with two backup ball handlers out there lets me know that there is a change in philosophy in terms of how Isaac Okoro is going to be used this year. And it's something that I really hope that they stick with, even if there are some growing pains.
That is certainly possible that there is a change in philosophy with how they're using Isaac, but I think I might expand that in general too. I just think everyone's getting more chances to play make, and because it's easier to play make. When the floor is spaced, when you are getting to attack with advantage, when you when your reads are easier, I think it's just easier to play make. I think I've seen Isaac make nice reads. I've often seen Isaac make nice reads. He's just getting more opportunities to do it, averaging 3.75 assists through the first couple games. But what you're seeing is the assists are kind of spread all over the floor right now. Jerome will get 5, Strus will get 5, Okoro will get 4, Donnie will get 5 or 6. It's kind of all over the place. I feel like the playmaking is really egalitarian, and I don't know if it is a strategic choice to say, hey, we're going to have Isaac attack more off ball, as much as it is Isaac is catching the ball with someone who is in motion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not to say that he's not doing a good job taking advantage of them. I'm just saying that I think he is because we've seen him do some attacking in the past, but so often he's just catching the ball with a guy half-ass closing out at him, where he just kind of has to run straight into someone's chest, and the angles are just easier for him with the way the court is shaped right now.
In some ways I agree with you, but I disagree, because I think where he's getting those touches, this would never come above the break. He was never, staring the basket straight on, getting those touches. And, you have those off-ball plays being run for someone else, right? You have those sets being run for Max Strus. And there's the two-man game with Isaac Okoro and Evan Mobley, or whoever that big is, right? And him even getting dribble handoffs from above the break, that's something that you didn't see. And I think you're right, though, with your overall point that there are more playmaking opportunities for someone. The fact that he's averaging 10 assists through 3 games, playing 21 minutes per night, that works out to 6 assists per 36, right? In the past, Isaac Okoro was put in a bit of a box where, okay, you're going to be one of the better point of attack defenders in the league, but offensively, you're going to space. You might get some cutting opportunities, but in general, you're going to stand in the corner. And how we talked about his offensive game would be kind of reductive of, did he happen to hit those threes that night, or did he miss them, or did he not even get those opportunities? Now that he's being used in other ways, and you're getting the playmaking juice, you're getting some ball handling out of him, JB is using him in ways that gets more value out of him and makes it easier to justify him being on the court, whether or not he's hitting those threes. Now, the three-pointer, it's looking more confident. He's taking them well. He's hitting them at a good rate. That's great to see. But if Isaac Okoro is providing a little bit of ball handling, he's providing a little bit of playmaking, he's going out there and getting 6-7 rebounds like he did tonight. Like, if he's doing all of those things as well, it becomes a lot easier to have him on the basketball court with a variety of different guys. And that's important because, like we said before, as much as we have optionality in what type of rotations we play, that is our only lockdown point of attack defender on the team. Karras can, sometimes be that kind of guy, but Isaac's the only one that can do that at a really high level, especially when you talk about the elite ball handlers in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you mentioned that Chris Fedor kind of reported that the top 8 were locked in and Okoro was in that group, and you kind of said, as you'd expect, it would be the guys you'd expect. I think that's kind of underplaying the jeopardy Okoro was in. I think he had to go and earn a rotation spot. And yeah. I think he has shown through the work ethic, through the increased willingness to launch from both the corner and above the break, and the playmaking reps, I think he has locked in that spot. I think that if he had a really bad camp in preseason, he'd be more in jeopardy than we think. Because because of the fact that
Dean Wade is playing this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Dean Wade is playing off the charts. Ty Jerome is giving you really, really good minutes at the backup one. So it's this team, I don't really think is going to be able to afford to have anyone getting rotation minutes on reputation, on draft pedigree. I think it's going to be kind of, if you're good enough, you'll get the minutes, because and like those, that it'll slightly change based on kind of the opponent, what the team needs during any given stretch. But like, I think he has all but locked in that he pretty much has to be in the rotation, and I think that's a really important win for the Cavs, because as you mentioned, he brings a skill set no one else has on the team. So I think they would be kind of left wanting that if he wasn't able to earn those minutes.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I'm just intrigued because him getting the ball, like it's always coming off of movement. It's not like he's bringing the ball up and then initiating the offense that way, right? Like he's not walking the ball up or anything like that. But because it's coming off of movement, defenders have to come up to him. Like whether they respect his 3-point shot or not, you can't allow those passing lanes to be wide open. Similar to like what the Warriors have when it's Draymond Green or Andre Iguodala, less than lethal shooters from the outside. You have to do that. And when you're dealing with a motion offense, like if you don't come up to Isaac Okoro, okay, he's going to just hand the ball off to Max Strus that came on the corner, and you can have a wing-to-wing dribble handoff in those positions, and he's getting an open three. Like it just opens up so many opportunities, and I actually really like the chemistry we're already seeing with Okoro and Strus. Like they seem to know how to find one another well, and we got to talk about Max Strus because we're focusing on the game tonight, but I thought against Orlando, it really showcased how many ways that he can help the team. Like obviously the focus is on his shooting, but like I love his screen setting. I love his ability to relocate. The fact that he was out there being one of those guys giving you playmaking, getting 5 assists along with 6 rebounds, right? Like the set play that they had where he gave up the ball, got it back, and then found Darius in the corner. Like that was a gorgeous, gorgeous play. And just his ability as a connector and how many ways he helps the Cavs offensively, I think really is being underrated. And I've had a few people reach out, whether, it's Discord or just other Cavs fans that we know, like being like, hey, he's a little bit better overall than I realized, just in the ways that he can contribute.
Yeah, I really liked his game against Orlando. That opening set to give Darius that 3, I think is kind of, the epitome of everything we kind of hoped we'd see, and part of what makes him a special player for what this team needs. The fact that he sets the screen, then cuts to the basket, forces the pass. Damian Jones sets that pin down for Darius. Like that's just a play I don't really think they had in the playbook last year. And he's going to have gravity. Guys are going to top lock him and try to keep him from spraying out to 3. So he can, much like Kyle Korver used to do for this team, where all of a sudden he cuts the other way and the basket's just right wide open right in front of him. I just think he's clearly getting that respect from the opposition, which is, as we've noted, matters honestly more than any other part of this. It has always mattered more than any other part of this, that he is getting guarded and thus everything is easier. Tony Pesta, also, if you're the sword, tweeted that horn set where the one where Darius enters the ball to Donovan on the wing, and he just kind of slipped down and cut to the basket and got a free layup out of it. Like when they ran that last year, there was no room for that slip to the bucket, and the spacing is just so much better. And I think Strus has really shown that, like, I think the worry whenever you sign a shooter or a guy known as a shooter is, if he's not hitting, is it gonna suck to have him out there? And like thus far, I haven't felt like that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and he competes on the defensive end. Like I said, his ability as a screen setter opens up, pick and pop opportunities for him. They ran a fake double drag as well, where he had a nice pop opportunity. One of my favorites against Orlando. Darius missed the shot on this one, but the ball quickly got entered from Darius to Mobley at the top of the key. Strus came flying around from the corner to get the fake dribble handoff. Mobley didn't give it to him. Strus sets the pick for Darius. Darius comes screaming towards Mobley, so the defense is scrambling, being like, oh crap, like now it's going to be Darius getting the shot. Mobley hits Strus. The defense scrambles even more, and then Strus just throws it cross court to Darius at the 45, and Darius missed the shot, but it's a wide open clean look, and just goes to show like the chemistry these guys already have. They know where one another is going to be on the court, and just having that level of basketball IQ, having someone like Max Strus that has played in a similar type of offense off of similar sets in Miami. And being able to take advantage of Mobley's increased playmaking and assertiveness, I think is massive for the team. It's really exciting to see what he unlocks with this roster.
Bro, I think this team is going to blow the doors off teams in some regular season games. I think there's going to be stretches where the offense is hard to keep up with. And, like that's the thing that allows that defense to even take a little step back, is like, I just think they're going to drown some teams. Like they have 3 volume shooters on the floor at all times now. Like that's so exciting. And they have on ball creation. Like Karras has 9 assists in his 2 games. They've got space. They've got rollers. They've got short roll creators. Like they don't have a big playmaking wing. They don't have a bullying post scorer. But they have just about everything else, and like that should add up to a really good offense, man.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like, I think if there's going to be a hiccup, it's going to be the start of the season, especially with Jared Allen missing preseason. I expect a little bit of a slower start for him, similar to Evan Mobley last year, missing preseason with that ankle injury. It's going to be a little bit similar there. You look at the first 10 games they play, it's all against teams with postseason aspirations. You got the Thunder twice, you got the Knicks twice, you got the Warriors twice, you play the Kings. Like these teams are all going to test them early on. God, you play the Pacers twice, and like that's a potent offense that's going to test kind of this reconfigured defense that the Cavs have. So if they can go like even 6-4, 7-3 over those first 10 games, and find a rhythm from there, I think that'd be a huge win. But if they really navigate that well, like if it's an 8-2 start to the season, we're really talking about a special unit if everyone stays healthy. So it's going to be interesting to see, just, is there a learning curve? Are there adjustments? How are they able to maintain this new style of play when tested? Because they're going to be tested early. It's going to be fascinating to watch, but we would be completely remiss if we did not discuss Emani Bates, because Emani Bates has been awesome. You talk about Dean Wade putting up 15 threes. Emani's put up 20 threes. He is 9 of 20 from 3 in 3 games. This guy is a bucket. I am loving watching him play. And the second half minutes where it was Craig Porter Jr., Emani Bates, Isaiah Mobley out there, like all the charge guys on the court, I was sitting there, I'm like, man, I know I've said it a million times, but I'm going to be tuning into those games.
Man, he's been just super fun. And I am so impressed with how in control he has played. He has taken so few, this game is really the first time where we saw him take any self-created off the dribble type of attempts.
Mhm.
And
unless it's late game ones, which he cashes all of those as well.
Well, yeah, and those have mostly been pull-up threes that have been decent looks, like nothing. He hasn't taken many shots or had many possessions where I was like, well, that was an adventure. And I really expected to see a lot of that. That's really hard to go from being a guy who gets to self-create a ton to being, skinny Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah.
And
or as our Discord calls him, JR Stick.
JR Stick's a great nickname.
It's really good.
But yeah, like I've just been really impressed by the restraint, which is funny for a guy who's taken 23s in like 45 minutes. But I really have. I've really enjoyed seeing that he really is taking open catch and shoot threes and mixing in late shot clock pull-ups when he has to. But there's not a lot of like 14, 15 dribble possessions. And I don't know if that is a coaching staff thing. I don't know if that's him just increasingly aware that, like, because we saw a few possessions, like he just does not have enough burst off the dribble to consistent or the frame strength to get around or by guys. So like, but if you're tall as tall as he is, with a high release point and a quick release point and a willing shooter, you're gonna get clean looks. So even when he is semi-contested, he's just not that contested. And like the roadmap just gets clearer and clearer for me to see what he could be as a rotation player. I don't think it's this year. I keep seeing people kind of ask that question of like, hey, is he going to be a main roster guy this year? I don't know if he is. And I certainly think if he's a rotation player, probably something's gone a little amiss elsewhere. Because again, I just don't think, like, imagine him trying to guard Jason Tatum with the frame he has right now. It's just asking too much of him where he is physically in his development. But like I'm seeing the long game in a way that, as someone who wasn't a huge fan of the pick, it's hard not to be impressed.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by him. I still think, getting minutes with the Charge is the biggest priority, because if he's at least in position defensively, he's going to be able to alter shots just with how long he is. And you can have a little bit of a Lowry Markkanen thing, right? Where, all right, you're not stopping anyone one-on-one, but you're long and you're contesting shots, and that backline help is there. And like that shooting and the high release point, those are NBA level skills. And we do need to, take into consideration that he's mostly playing, second half in the first two games, and then this game against a non-NBA team, right? So he's not playing against the toughest of toughest competition, but like you said, his willingness to play within the team style, to take the right shots, to play team basketball, you have to give him a lot of credit for that. And I wouldn't be surprised if, come February or March, after, the majority of the G League season is over, that, okay, we're going to promote you. We're going to give you an opportunity here. We're going to give you some minutes if we need it, especially down the stretch, just to give you opportunities against NBA competition. Because when you really look at it, and obviously the Cavs do have an empty roster spot, but who would you rather give minutes to if you're talking about strictly guys that are going out there and giving shooting and not a whole lot else? Would you rather give that to Emani Bates or Sam Merrill?
It's Emani Bates. I mean,
like the 6'10" guy, right? Over the 6'4" shooter, where we have more of a glut at the guard position, right?
And we've talked about this, like this summer, I think was a little rough for Merrill in terms of the roster additions. Adding a guy like Strus, where it's like, Merrill went from the one guy in the roster who does the things he does to, they just invested in a major way, and a guy who does those things that with more size, more pedigree, etc. Whereas again, they just don't really have an Emani Bates archetype on the main roster right now, and like that plays to his favor, alongside the fact that, again, gotta remind people, he's only 19. He's a second year guy. He spent 2 years in college, but because he reclassified, he is still very young. He doesn't turn 20 until January.
Yeah. And he says the right things. Like in every single interview, I'm like, hell yeah, man. Like you're doing the right things. You're saying the right things.
His
like
yes sir active listening in interviews is very endearing.
It really is. I love it. Like I'm just such a big Emani Bates fan right now. And you know what? Like you look at the team last season, they probably could have used Emani, like just as a guy that's out there shooting. And if they hadn't knocked it out of the park when it came to this offseason and the additions that they added and the proven NBA depth that they have on this roster, yeah, I could see opportunities, but getting him opportunities, getting him playing time, getting him with his development staff, it's going to do him a world of good.
With an NBA weight room, you know?
Yeah. Continuing that and having the ability to practice with the main club, like that, those are all such assets and a real advantage of having the charge in town. So I saw earlier, Evan Damerol had tweeted out a quote for Emani Bates, basically saying like that they're big fans of him. Here, you stall for time while I pull this up. I had it before and now my phone's gone.
You blew it, buddy. I still love you. But yeah, I didn't expect to like Emani Bates' game as much as I have liked it. Even when he's taken the quick trigger threes, I've just immediately been like, yep, I would have taken that if I were him. Like I want him to be an aggressive shooter. I want him to take, like 20% contested threes. And I think, especially when he's catching those within the rhythm of the offense, I think the offense is actually worse served when he's too selfless.
Yeah, I completely agree. And here's JB's quote. He said, if Emani went in the lottery, he'd be contending for Rookie of the Year this year. We're fortunate that Emani is here, and I think he's fortunate to be here because the pairing works. And I completely agree. Like, they're going to put him in the best position possible to hit the ground running when he does start getting NBA minutes. And you look at the talent he has, you look at the buy-in, you look at how much belief JB and others have and the veterans on this team have in him. This seems like a really good situation. And we talk about it all the time, Carter. Like when you look at the teams that have had real long sustained runs in the NBA where they're contending year after year, there's always that one lucky hit that they have, whether it's in the second round, an undrafted guy, something along those lines that just moves the needle. And, if you hit on a guy like Emani Bates, a 6'10" guy that can shoot the lights out of the gym, that can really move the needle. Even if you're just talking to, like, not as an all-star type player, but as a guy that can be that complementary role player that works so well with this core. Like, the fit just makes so much sense.
Yeah, it really has. And man, an embarrassment of riches for the Cavaliers. And by the way, Craig Porter Jr. had another awesome game.
Oh my God! Tonight. Yeah, we didn't even get to him, and he was great. I love how good he looks down the court. Like
step back three, attack, poised. Getting above the rim on his rim attacks have been.
Oh, he almost killed a guy.
Yeah, I know. Just super. The playmaking has been really, really high level. Only 3 turnovers so far in his three games. To nine total assists. The finishing's been good. He's getting to the line. Got his first, signature CPJ block in this game on a kind of a come from behind block. So man, just very, very exciting stuff from this young core and kind of the young core after the young core.
The shirt before the shirt, man. It's wild. Like normally if we went like 50 minutes on a podcast, we would have covered absolutely everybody, but you're right. Like we didn't have time to go for Craig Porter Jr. We weren't able to really go in depth with how good Ty Jerome's looked, but these guys are going to get opportunities to shine throughout the regular season, and I could not be more excited. We'll have one more podcast early next week doing a little bit of a season preview
time.
Looking forward to that. And then after that, we will be going live after game 1 against the Brooklyn Nets. Hopefully, we don't get some sort of Ben Simmons all NBA vintage throwback in that one, because I've talked some mess about the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm a little uncomfortable that that's game 1, because I just know that you're going to rub that in my face.
It's poor form, truly.
Happen. But really excited to get this started. I mean, man, this preseason is just I was already high on this team. I'm just wildly excited now.
I just didn't expect to leave this preseason feeling any kind of way about anything, you know?
It's like they're playing differently. Like that's the surprise. Like they are implementing the changes they want to make to their offense, and they are implementing them effectively. Like it doesn't look disjointed. And we talked about the camps before the camps, but that really seems to be paying dividends. And it's clear that it wasn't just these guys getting together to hang out and work out and play around. They were very clearly like taking the instructions from the coaching staff, taking the feedback with JB Bickerstaff and all the other coaches, and implementing what they're actually going to be working on in the regular season, because it's looked seamless with how they're running this offense.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. And it was reported that I believe JB said that the final preseason game, I think it's against Indiana. Is that correct?
Yeah. Will be the dress rehearsal.
Will be a dress rehearsal for the first 3 quarters. So we'll really get to see these guys get some legitimate run before, they get about 5 days off prior to the actual opener. But man, Christmas is almost here, Justin.
We're almost there. Could not be excited. I agree. Go Cavs. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.